live. Hey, Grateful Gang. Oop, now we're live. Hey there, Grateful Gang. This is Lauren Blanchard-Zaleski here with our weekly show, Gratefully Living the Chronic Life, where we talk every week about issues for people with chronic conditions, either mental or physical, emotional, whatever your pain is. We talk about it so we can help each other to, learn from it and try to live our best lives, most fulfilling lives anyway. So thank you for those of you who are here. I have my friend Eva with me tonight. Eva.
Hi.
She's going to be talking to us about a really fascinating topic. So I'll give her her proper introduction later, but she is a member of AOG. She is one of the original members of AOG. Like, I was trying to go back and find out when you became a member. And all I got, when I was doing it on my phone, it said 4 years ago. So yeah. I wanted a little more specific. So I went on my computer, on my desktop, and you get more specific on there. And it said that you joined March, where'd it go? I lost it already. There it is, March 4th, 2016. So, and I don't think we had even hit 100 members by then. Do you remember?
50. I was like number 50, you told me. But in the past, you told me like in the past I was number 50. Yeah, I don't even know how I got here.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, I wish I could remember how I did that.
Yeah, I would be fascinated to know, because back then, well, there wasn't a whole lot of word of mouth. It was growing really slowly. I think we were a couple of years before we even hit 1,000 people.
It might be through somebody I know, and if they are listening, if they know who you are, if you know who you are, let me know.
Yes, please do. Anyway, Eva is with us tonight, and what she has to say. She is an expert on, child's mental health advocate, as well as children and adults with hypertension deficit disorder. Did I get that right? No, you can correct me. But she will have some fascinating information for you, whether or not you know anybody with ADHD, you yourself have ADHD. What she has to say does apply to you. She was talking about it at Flush the Format, which is our 2 times a week we offer a live chat called Flush the Format, which Linda Edwards so elegantly runs for us. And it's an opportunity for an hour each time to talk about whatever you want. You don't have to stay within our regular AOG guidelines. And Eva had attended a few weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm. And I had asked her how her organization was. And she was, talking. She's very passionate and an expert on the subject. And we were all just these light bulbs over our head. And I think I talked to you immediately after that and said, would you want to come on the show? So thank you for being here with us.
I can't. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It really is. I'm very excited to be here and be able to pass some of this information along to people. It was a really big aha moment in my life because I was diagnosed, as many women or many girls are, much later than boys are diagnosed with ADHD. And really? ADHD, stands for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And a lot of times people say, well, that's ADD, and we do use that, but it's kind of that it's more trying to keep it more formal and saying ADHD and clearing it up that way. So did you want to say any more, or should I just take it from here?
No, let's do a couple announcements first. Okay. And then we'll get into it. I don't want to take much time away from you and the feedback we will most surely get from our members, because it's a fascinating topic. But I think what I was going to say was, maybe I finished saying it. See, I think I have this. I can't wait to hear you talk about it more. I don't remember anything, but when she finished speaking about it at Flush the Format, we were all, I did say this, light bulbs over our heads. So I think you guys will be absolutely fascinated. So let's see who we've got so far. Arlene's here. Hello, Arlene. We have Gail is here. Hi, Lauren. Hi, Eva.
Hi, Gail.
Facebook user says, sorry, Eva. Not sure who that is. Can you see that on your end?
Yeah, I see it.
Do you see
who that?
person is? Yeah. Because on my dashboard, on the StreamYard dashboard, you have to give permission for your name to be used. Hang on, let me see if I could do it on my iPad. Be right back. For anybody else that may be a first-time viewer, if you don't give StreamYard permission to use your name and photo, you come up on the screen as Facebook user, because our main group, Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain, is a closed group. So the StreamYard program can't do that unless you say, yeah, that's cool. So if you're not able to get that, you can always, if you're coming up Facebook user, if you would like your name read, you can put that after your comment and we'd be happy to read it. But I'm just going to look here and see on the regular screen who that was. I want to see who said sorry, Eva. So if you're not able to get, I don't want to hear myself. You can always, if you're coming up Facebook user, if you would like your name read, you can. Okay. I just want to see comments. Happy to read it. Eva. Linda Edwards. Was it Linda Edwards? Linda Edwards wrote that comment. Did she put you in the group? Did you know her before? We need to get to the bottom of this. Linda Edwards, what are you sorry for? Interesting. Yes, we need to get to the bottom of this. Anyway, moving on. Linda, clear this up for us. I think that was Linda that wrote that. We've got Deborah Emmer Scott. Hi, ladies. Thank you, Eva. We have Arlene again. Interesting. My son, who is 29 years old today, happy birthday to him, was diagnosed back when he was 6 years old. I did not know that. And we have Heidi. Hi, Heidi. Thank you, guys. We have more that haven't checked in. If you'd like to check in, we would love to answer you and give you a quick shout out. We have several more watching, I can see. So thank you for being with us. Just a few quick announcements first. I have to remove Heidi's comment here. Every week, for those of you that are regular watchers, I wear a different gratitude shirt. And we are on episode, believe it or not, tonight's episode 14. So I have had 14 different gratitude shirts. Now, this will end eventually because I don't plan on breaking the bank with my gratitude shirts. But this one, Eva got me. And I haven't worn it yet. So it was a good opportunity to do that. It says, grateful. And it is the most comfortable thing. And to be honest with you, I wear it to bed because it's so loose fitting and pretty. So I figured, why not just, make it a complete jammy day?
There you go.
When you broadcast live, you be in your jammies. I love this shirt. And you bought it for me overseas, right?
Yeah. 2 years ago, we went to Rome for our 30th for our niece's wedding. And she got married in Tuscany. She lives in Germany, so it wasn't such a far destination for them. But when we were in Rome, I think we were going through a Forever 21, and I seen it. And I didn't get it right away. And then I begged my husband to walk back the same way that we had come because I had my intention set on getting that shirt. I just couldn't let it go. It was too perfect.
I mean, you're in Tuscany and you had time to think of me. I'm honored.
Oh, we weren't there yet, but it is absolutely gorgeous. It is just a peaceful, gorgeous place to be. Yes. The light, everything is different there. So amazing. I'll definitely show pictures of that. I got up one morning, it was 6:30, and I just took pictures forever.
Yeah, you're good
you couldn't take a bad one.
You like photography, right?
I love photography. Yes, I do.
You post a lot in Bruce's group, I think, right?
Yeah, maybe I did already. So yeah, that's a great.
No, thing. I don't remember. I would love to see them again. It's one of my bucket list places. So maybe you can help me with that, Eva. But anyway, thank you for the shirt.
I'll tell you where to go. It's definitely go there.
I don't expect all my guests to have given me a gratitude shirt, but this guest certainly does. And I'm excited to wear it. And it goes I had to actually iron it. I was terrified to put it on. I don't wear it during the day for several reasons. One is it's just so comfortable and it's loose fitting and it's perfect for bed. Two, it would be less than 30 seconds before this thing, it is white and it would not be white any longer. I'd have fountain pen ink on it. I've had Cheeto dust. I would have anything would be on here, and chocolate. And it's so nice, and it's from, Europe and everything. I had to keep it nice. So I'm just thrilled that I get to wear it with you today. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we've got some new people joining us. We had Heidi already. Hi, Heidi. Linda Canalicchio. Hi, guys. Hi there. Thanks for joining us. Facebook user says, I misspelled her name. That must be Linda again. I'm not sure where you misspelled her name, Linda. But it's all right. Right, Eva?
I don't care. It's EVA, it's 3 letters. You can't get that wrong.
Okay. So a couple short announcements. I got the t-shirt already. If anybody's interested, we talked a little bit about this last week. If anybody did not get a chance to order the face masks, you should have, if you're in the United States, you should have gotten yours by now. They're absolutely fabulous. If you're overseas and you ordered from me, I'll be getting those to you as soon as I can. If you did not get a chance to order and you really wish you did, let me know, okay? I still haven't checked into it, but if we had a significant amount, I could probably place another group order. I don't think we could do singles, but if there's a significant amount, we can. So, and I hope those of you that got them this week are enjoying them. They're so nice and soft. Happy Mail. Those of you doing a Happy Mail, this is the most awesome thing that Deborah and Linda and Arlene are doing. It's people are signing up and sending each other cards and all that stuff. I've gotten quite a few. I can never tell what, like, it's always opposite of what you think it is. I got happy Mail this week from Seton, from two Brooks, my cousin Brooke and Brooke Heidi, Jen Leos, Arlene. They make me so happy. And my beginning of my week was kind of crappy, to be honest with you. So just, these are so thoughtful. But anyway, if you're doing Happy Mail, you know yourself how great it is. If you're not doing it, starting this Sunday, they are going to offer a new month to do Happy Mail. So you'll get a chance to sign up and get some new people trying the Happy Mail. It really is fun. I don't know if you've been doing it, Eva, but writing
I
it.
have not. I got to pay attention more often.
Well, we have a lot
all
going
over the place. Yeah, no, I think I was taking advantage of all the nice weather we were having in the beginning of the summer, and getting a lot of outdoor projects out of the way, at least started. So
yeah, you're loving your garden.
If
you'd like to sign up for Happy Mail, they'll put up a post on Sunday, and I highly recommend it if you didn't already try it. And I hope those of you that are trying it this month have enjoyed it. And I was going to say how my week was, but I think I just did. The beginning of the week was crappy. Now is not, so I'm happy. Ooh, that's like a little, is that a haiku? No, it wasn't a haiku. Beginning of the week was crappy. Now is not, so I'm happy. It's pretty talented. Okay. Kathy Johnston's here. Good evening. Hey, Kathy, I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here. I hope you're feeling well. And Kimberly Rose, hello all. Hi, Kimberly. Thanks for joining us. Okay, on to the important stuff and why you guys are here. First, let me start off that goes without saying, but Eva and I are not doctors. So everything you hear tonight is going to be from Eva's personal experience. Now, she's not just somebody talking about it. She's got lots of years of expertise and research. Eva is child's mental health advocate, like I mentioned, ADHD expert, and the founder of Try Chad, New Jersey, along with the funniest girl in the world. Did I miss anything in that description of you?
I just play one on TV. No.
I was going to say that too. We have the same sense of humor. So the topic, what was the name of our topic? It's Why Can't I Do This?
Yes. Why can't I do this?
Why can't I do this? That's based on an article that she had talked to me about and then sent me. Why can't I finish things? Why does my brain work the way it does? Why am I so anxious over things. I'm talking about all of us as a whole, of course. Those
Mhm.
are the things that Eva can possibly answer for us. So, Eva, I don't want to take any more time away from you. Why
No,
don't
no
you?
problem. No
So,
problem.
how did everything get started with you and your journey with ADHD and all that stuff?
Okay. Well, I was diagnosed actually much later in life than boys are. My
You
son,
were.
yeah, I was,
Okay.
but I was introduced to it when my son was 6 years old and having trouble with some milestones. He was, not as quick to talk as my old first one. He was a boy, and I kind of said, well, all kids are different, but boys,
Yes.
could be especially slower in development. So it didn't bother me that much. But when school came around, we started to see some learning problems, and some of them were using pronouns incorrectly. Some of them were not remembering what sounds, like the A says and all that other stuff. He couldn't remember what the letter sounded like.
Can you give me an example of like not using a pronoun properly? I'm trying to
Like he would
visualize
say
that.
him go to the store instead of
Oh,
he went to the
wow.
store. So he would flip them, but that kind of worked its way out. He doesn't do that anymore. But
Is
those
that
are
kind of
just
a typical thing?
it's kind of, well, when you're talking about language based disorders like dyslexia and reading disorders, and kind of those are what we say coexisting with ADHD. They kind of are maybe 50% of the people who are diagnosed with ADHD also have learning disabilities as well. And you would never know it because it has nothing to do with your intelligence, either one of
Right.
those. ADHD or learning disabilities are doesn't it can impact your academics, but it's not indicative of having an intellectual disability. So,
Right.
but we were concerned because his teachers started to say that it's really hard for him to participate. He seems to be pulled away all the time by things that are going on inside. He'll wander
I
around the
was all
school.
day today.
Yeah, it was hard for him to participate in school. So we took him to a neurologist. We first kind of took care of all the organic problems that it could be: reading. We checked his eyes, hearing. Just kind of went through all the specialties, make sure that it wasn't anything else going on. And then the neurologist did an evaluation for him and diagnosed him with ADHD and the combination type. So,
How did that affect you? Were you kind of
well,
prepared for it, not surprised, or?
not surprised. I'm glad that we knew what we were dealing with, but in that time, we were just kind of like, well, here's medicine. Now you have typical child to raise, and that's not true. I wish I had somebody tell me that then, because they can't be raised as you would typical kids. And I think sometimes the way we raise typical kids anyway needs improvement. But they're having this disorder in childhood really helps you be a better parent, because you are really looking for ways around the oppositionality you can get from a kid with ADHD because of their inability to kind of keep up with their peers. They develop sometimes maladaptively, and it's hard because you expect the chronological age to show the development, but the developmental age is much different. So once he was diagnosed, everything went pretty good. We kind of said, well, if you're a plumber, you get, if you need a plumber, you get a plumber, and if you need a education expert, you rely on the school to do this. And of course, we're talking about in 1990, let me see, 1999, 90, 2000. So there wasn't so much empowerment with parents at that time, and we were just kind of like following along with the school. He had what they called an IEP in place, and I think his reading disability has kind of got him a little bit more attention than if he had just had ADHD by itself.
Why do you think so many kids nowadays? Do you think there are more cases, or did we just not diagnose
better
it?
diagnostics?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it used to be called BAD, remember?
Yes, exactly. Like I remember being in school and there was always that one bad kid, usually a boy. And, but now it just seems like there's lots of IEPs in the schools,
Right.
a lot more allergies and all that stuff. And, you could make, assumptions, but I was curious to hear your point of view.
Yeah, he never behaved in a way contrary in school. He always would hold it together. And this was something that a lot of people would say, well, they shouldn't be able to do that, but they do. They have the ego strength to hold it together during the day and to just like lay it all on you when you come home. And because that's appropriate. There's socially a lot to lose to do that in school. So he was never one of the ones in the principal's office or anything. Actually, my youngest was the only one of my three that got into the principal's office, and she's in med school right now. So,
Hey, let's show a picture of this family of yours before we move on. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see if I can do this. It only took me 20 minutes of getting it going, and let's see, Messenger maybe, or this one. Let's see. Hopefully, I don't share the wrong picture. Oh, I got it. Can you see that? There's your beautiful family. Who do we have here? On your left is your son, right?
This is my son, Bobby. Yeah. And next to me is Katie. She's my baby. Bobby and Katie are only 16 months apart. Megan is my oldest one. She's going to be 32 this year. And so she's 7.5 and 5.5 years older than the other two. So she, there's a big age difference between the first two, and not much of a difference between the second and the third. And my sister-in-law, who lives in the same town that I do, she has children exactly the same ages as my two.
Really?
They were born, Bobby and his cousin were born 3 days apart, and Katie and her corresponding cousin were born a week apart.
Oh, so that's nice.
He's turning 25 this Sunday. So my baby is half a quarter of a century old.
Now your son was the only one. No, none of us are old. We're just, well, maybe a little old. And this is your husband, I assume, right?
Yep. That's my husband, Bob. He's actually on the board of directors with Chad now. I pushed him to do that because he has amazing business acumen, and he's doing really well. He's helping us out as an organization a lot.
Very nice.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We're married 35 years.
Congratulations. So this must have been hard for your entire family when this was going on.
It was. Bobby had mental health problem. It still has a mental health problem. I mean, we all have mental health problems. They become bigger problems when they are interfering with our lives. So everybody's mental health hygiene should be the same and should be taken care of just as much as you would take care of your physical health. I'm trying to break down those walls of stigma about asking for help when, things are going wrong in the emotional department.
Yeah.
And that started with my son when he was in middle school. We typically call this kind of the brick wall, where they go from the surrogacy of their one room and one teacher to 7 part-time jobs in middle school. And the strain on their ability to organize themselves and keep on top of things is, I mean, if we did this to an adult, they wouldn't stay at that job.
Like I said, I mean, I'm always kind of scattered anyway, but just some days are worse than others. And today I'm not trying to be funny. I had all day. I was sitting at my desk all day and the opportunity to work and all that. And I just really couldn't complete much. It was very bad. It's almost like, my higher power is saying, you've got this talk tonight, here's this day. But I did get a shower in, so that's good.
Yeah. Kind of what ADHD is all about. It's kind of where we are very cognizant of what we have to do. And it's not not knowing what to do. It's doing what we know.
Right.
It's a performance problem.
Yeah.
And performance problems are very hard to.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Eva. For those of you who are watching, Eva's taking questions, comments all throughout this tonight, so you don't have to save it for the end. We'll take breaks periodically. Just a couple things here. Kathy Johnson, I've missed you. Thanks, Kathy. Beautiful family, says Deborah Emmer Scott. And Deborah also says, thank you so much for bringing up the importance of mental health. So important. Thank you for recognizing that, Deborah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Joe,
so where were we?
How
I was on your family.
When I was 42 is when I was diagnosed. And
when you were diagnosed.
Yeah, but what preceded it was my son's mental health concerns at age 11. We had to hospitalize him, and he was diagnosed with major depressive disorder.
With who? I'm sorry. Your
my son.
Your son
was diagnosed at age 11. Yeah, with major depressive disorder, and this is a depression with suicidal ideation.
Wow.
So it is a very difficult combination to treat. And he's had lots of therapy. He's done DBT a couple of times. And that kind of shocks you into wanting to be as informed as you possibly can.
Absolutely.
And so this is why I got into trying to find and being close to the people who were the experts.
So Mama Bear kicked in.
Yeah,
Mama Bear kicked in, and she wanted to help her boy.
Right.
How did you recognize that he was in this state? If you feel like sharing that, like, how did you know?
Yeah, no, it's very important. Actually, it's one of the biggest things I do share is that when kids are irritated and angry, this is depression. This is not
really
pain. Yeah, this is the way they show depression. Kids as young as 3 can be diagnosed with depression. So it's not, it is something you do pay attention to, especially if they do have a diagnosis with ADHD. It's an 80% chance of them having some sort of coexisting issue, and 60% chance of having 2. So look for it if you have a child already diagnosed or yourself.
So he was lucky. He had you to kind of know what to look for.
Yeah, you wouldn't say that.
No, of course not.
Yeah, Chad is the evil 4th child in our family.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So that's how all of a sudden Mama Bear kicked in, and you found Chad.
He definitely got the help that he needed. But in doing so, I was starting to check a lot of the boxes. When I learned kind of clandestine things about ADHD, that it affects your ability to finish college, or it affects your ability to be on time. You have job problems. You're going through jobs a couple of years. You have a lot of contact with the law enforcement. I
have a friend who is always late. I love her to death. Yeah. She is always late. Now, actually, I'm not that I go out anymore, but now I've turned into like the late person, and I could have plenty of time to get ready, but then I end up late.
Right.
I don't know what that means.
Because ADHD is kind of, like I said, a performance issue. So we have difficulty orienting ourselves towards that piece in the future. It's kind of like having time blindness. So it does affect our part of our temporal lobe. There's actually kind of like a circuit that this runs through, and it connects 3 different parts of your brain in this loop. So when we understand where the brain is not acting or not as not developed, that's what I want to say, not as active as it should be. We can see this on many different kinds of imaging. Some of the more famous ones show, this 2 pictures of this ADHD brain and non-ADHD brain.
Really?
One of them is all lit up, and everybody thinks that is the ADHD brain because it looks like it's on fire. I think they used like a glucose marker when they did this, or I don't know. But the other brain doesn't look as bright and shiny. That's the ADHD brain.
Really?
It's an underfunctioning of your brain. So things happen. It's just they don't happen as quickly as somebody who doesn't have the disorder. We all understand how neurons and signals that go from your brain to what you're about to do, what happen. They are controlled by little chemicals called neurotransmitters. And these are also very important when they study things like fibromyalgia, because they're both what they call dopaminergic dysfunction. So there's a problem with the delivery of dopamine.
And dopamine is the stuff that makes you happy, right? Am I understanding that properly?
Yeah, everybody calls it the happy neurotransmitter. And 70% of it is made in your stomach. So,
really?
Yeah, so people have a problem with eating.
Is that where probiotics might help with that? The good bacteria in your gut? No.
That's where stimulant medicine would help, because they probably have ADD. Because they're creating dopamine while they're doing it. Other people argue a lot, and that, in their families are very like yelly. And they'll say they'll just yell everything all the time. And this is a way of keeping those neurotransmitter levels up to where they are available. So in the microchemistry of all of this is not that there's not enough of these neurotransmitters. There's not efficient use of them. So the firing and reloading of them is much different than in somebody who doesn't have the disorder.
Interesting.
Yeah. So by the way a stimulant medicine works, it stimulates the production of those neurotransmitters. So there's more availability, and that there's more chances for it to happen. So that's how it levels up. And treatment should be early as possible. So I think the American Academy of Pediatrics, you can start treatment as young as 4. Wow. Medical treatment, but medical treatment is, please, not the enchilada. Don't make the mistake I made. That it is giving you something to work with, because it is handling the core symptoms of ADHD, but it's not going to impress.
What's the mistake you made?
Like the core symptoms are inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity, and those the stimulant medicines help people to focus more, so they seem calmer, right? Sometimes it has a blunting effect, and if the kids are little, they get they kind of, some people say they look like zombies. I'm not doing that, right. But it's a matter of finding your way with that. It just helps.
Okay. We have, looks like we've got some stuff from Kimberly Rose here. Says, I have one son with ADHD and my youngest who is being evaluated for ADD. The youngest had sleep apnea, so they wanted to make sure that they didn't misdiagnose him, because they said the signs are very similar.
Yeah.
My older son just graduated from high school, and his symptoms were very present in middle school. We really had to educate ourselves and be his advocate, because people often don't give them the support they need at that age. No. We had to fight for a 504 learning plan to accommodate him. Did you have good support with the school and community once he is diagnosed?
I had to really fight for it, and I had to be the one who told them how to do it, because they don't know. They really don't know how this affects a child's learning ability. Every kid is different. And quite frankly, when they're becoming teachers, they don't do a whole lot in child development and neurodevelopmental disorders, but there's brain problems. The structure of the brain is smaller, which provides less surface area for these neuronal connections to be made. It seems to come out of nowhere during middle school, because that's when everything is changing, and that's when the demand suddenly increases.
Puberty age and all that.
It's what they call a noble point of development, and kids are, really getting a lot of demand dumped on them from social, from emotional, from school, from mom and dad.
Oh God, the social media must be a nightmare with kids with ADHD.
Yeah, keep the chargers. You can give them the phones, but keep the chargers.
I like that.
The natural consequences are the best teachers, right? So if you keep the charger and they have to turn on their phone at a certain time of night, they can keep their phone all night, but it's pretty better than so
that is clever.
Yeah. I mean, this is like after, you know, my kids have grown up, I've thought of this stuff. Don't think I knew how to do this.
Yeah, yeah, of course not. Well,
Yeah.
that's why we
It
want
was,
to
it
learn
was,
from you.
it was very different with Bobby. And then we discovered that he also had some extent of social anxiety. So it was hard for him to make friends. He was the kid, you know, who he would be friends with everybody, and nobody would be friends with him.
Oh, that's
He
heartbreaking.
is the nicest kid, and he is so funny. But to give you a visual, when I went to pick him up from track practice, my oldest daughter ran, and this is a non-team kind of thing where he could just kind of run against his own time.
Right.
And when I went to pick him up, there were several groups of boys, and he was the only kid, you know, over on the side, and he was throwing a towel up in the air and catching it. He wasn't part of the other group. So he found it very awkward and very anxiety provoking to be in a group and hold his own. So kids with ADHD, kind of, they either go to the younger kids or they stay with the adults.
Oh, the younger kids, interesting.
Yeah, because the younger kids don't notice it, and the older, the adults don't care. So,
Right.
you know, my oldest, she was always adult oriented, and my son was always with, you know, always found himself more comfortable playing with the younger kids, or not so much playing with them, but supervising them.
It's interesting you talking about this, because I'm thinking of kids that I know that have been diagnosed over the years, you know, kids that my kids grew up with, and I'm thinking that is so true. That's what you hang around with, the adults or the younger kids. I never thought about that.
Are socially and emotionally 2 to 5 years younger.
Is that right?
It's about 30%. So it's like sending you have a 10-year-old, it's like sending your 7-year-old to, you know, 4th, 5th grade. So they don't have the skills sometimes to even accept the imposition of will on them, such as from a parent. So, you know, some kids, you tell them, hey, go upstairs, brush your teeth, you know, and go to bed. And the other kids, you know, they go up and they come down with a Lego. The first instruction. But also the ability the skill to accept the will of someone else on you is a skill. And that is only done by age, and, you know, done by experience and time. And
is that right?
Yeah, the brain matures much slower. And more precisely, this part of the brain that covers the brain, it's kind of like the candy coating on an ice cream bar. Okay. It's like the chocolate layer. It's called the cortex. And we noticed over...
Now I want chocolate. Thank you very much.
We noticed the progression of this cortex compared to typical kids was much slower. So they do catch up. They're on the correct trajectory. They're going to be there. Okay.
So they do eventually catch up?
Yes, they
like
do.
Around,
and
is that a
30, 35?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Men can be a little bit longer. And it's funny because I know when my husband turned that age, things were different. I can now, with 2020 hindsight, see that change in his areas of interest were different. They weren't so focused on certain things anymore. So we call it mellowing with age, and I've come to know it as maturation. Your brain has actually matured. Normal adult maturation doesn't finish until 24, 25. And kids, when they're 18, they're allowed to do pretty much everything, join the military, they're allowed to vote, they're allowed to live on their own. They still have 6 years of development to go through. And
it's funny. My daughter Riley is 24, and she said that one of the kind of jokes that the kids her age say is, if they do something wrong, they're like, hey, it's not my fault. My frontal lobe isn't fully developed yet.
That's great. They really say that now.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
great. It's an excuse for doing stupid stuff.
Yep. And you wonder how, I got married at 19. So like my youngest daughter, I was into medicine and I was in nursing school, and I was also married at the time, and my doctor told me you probably weren't going to be able to get pregnant very easily. So I quit school when I got pregnant because I was having some complications and bleeding, and I had to stay in bed and all that. And when I went back, my daughter was about 3.5, 4. She was ready for the nursery school. And they said, oh, no, you can't come back. You have to sit for the final. The one you took 3.5 years ago, you have to sit for it again. And I said, when is it? And they said, Tuesday. Like,
oh, my God.
So they kind of checked the book down and said, no, sorry, now you failed your second class. My first failure, my first bad grade in nursing was drug calculations. It was very, very high in working memory. You had to remember how to convert between 3 different systems: apothecary, household, and metric, which they don't do now. But back then, it was a 1-credit course, and it was like the bane of my existence. And I really felt stupid. I felt like I didn't try hard enough. Yeah. Everybody else was getting this. When I took it the second time, it was with a different teacher, and I got an A.
And so, what did you have to do to get that A? Did you have to study?
No, it was presented in a different way.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes you will feel successful, sometimes you won't. There's a problem with consistency. And I think that's where the qualitative issue comes about. But ADHD isn't qualitative, it's quantitative. It's kind of how well you can see, how well you can shoot a basket. It's your executive skill, and that is something that
we know about your son. How did you get diagnosed?
Like
where does this apply to adults?
My daughter, my oldest daughter, when she was 20, was diagnosed. I'm sorry, when she was 18.
Really?
I started to see it. Yeah.
And you missed this,
I missed it. Why? Because she ran cross country every day for 6 years. She ran 3.5 miles just every day. And she was going to work. She had maybe 3 jobs at one time. Her way of managing it was to be busy constantly. And I think that's what women do all the time. They push themselves so hard. And what happens when we get hit with things like fibro and autoimmune problems and lupus, and it just, we can't generate that energy to keep that blood flow to those get those neurotransmitters to do what we need to do. Right. And that's what happened to me. It just was like, it slammed me.
So was it just?
I was in a conference, and they started talking about it, and they said, these words that we carry for people: lazy, they're crazy, they're stupid, they're selfish. And when they got to selfish, my ears were like, what? Because I always looked at my daughter as like, you can't pick up the bathroom mat every single time you go take a shower. It's still there on the floor and it's still wet. And I just busted into tears. I ran out of the conference, and thank God there was somebody who seen me, and she was just like, come here. She held her hands out, and I just kind of.
So you had kind of a light bulb moment with that.
Oh my God, yeah, that I have been so angry about all this stuff with her. Reading something she wrote was painful. She couldn't do the storytelling into expository writing. She couldn't put it in so a third person could read it.
Yet she had made it all through school at this point.
Yes, and with the exception of all this, but that was based on her energy levels, and that's really hard to maintain. So when she got diagnosed,
girls generally get diagnosed later, right, than boys, you said?
Much so. We're good at being girls. We're good at the social stuff. We know how to make it look. Boys, they just kind of bumble their way through, and they're like, what? No.
And we have the boys.
They don't have the social stuff. They don't worry about it as much. So I came to Chad through.
So your family there?
I was trying to think who introduced me. Oh, that's what it was. It was a camp for ADHD. We're kids with ADHD here in where I live. And I contacted them, and all of the Attention magazines. Let me show you Attention magazine. This is our publication.
How do you pay attention long enough to read an article?
Oh, they're absolutely amazing. The way that they're structured is for, look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it is. That's great.
Okay. So pandemic life.
That's how I'm writing my book.
Families.
Actually, I'm writing it as a group of essays rather than like start to finish, because I know when I go to read something, I like, bullet points or, short, palatable things. Yeah, that's easy.
Yep. Different colors. Do you see how nicely they separate everything? This is I know the editor-in-chief. She's amazing. I know everybody at CHAD. They're just the best organization. And I never was like that. I never was like, going to follow this. It was really, it was one of those decisions I made. I thought what happened was that after I was diagnosed, I think it was after I was diagnosed, it was in 2008, I started a local chapter of CHAD, a local affiliate. There's one in Princeton, there's one here in Monmouth County, and then up by you in Bergen and down in Atlantic County, that holds parent support and adults with ADHD meetings. And I have a co-coordinator who does the ADHD, the adults with ADHD. This is Susan.
We will put up the website after the podcast. Sure. I'll put the link to the website for all of you so you're right. See what it's all about. So where your daughter, where she got diagnosed. What about you? How did you come?
I talked to my doctor because he knows me the best. So go to the clinician who knows you very well. Okay. And bring along your sister, brother, mom, dad, whoever really, if you have. Hopefully you still have somebody that can attest to what you're saying and can tell you, because those are really the people who know you well. Your siblings raise you sometimes more than your parents do.
Yep. It's always a good idea anyway for all of us with chronic conditions to bring that second set of ears. With Amy, I have a big binder. I was always writing stuff down. I think I know more about her health than I do my own. I'm totally serious, but if you have that second set of ears is always helpful, because I know with me, a lot of times the doctors are talking to me and I'm just like, I'll look back later and be like, what did they say?
Yeah. Was that it? That's the institutional knowledge that sometimes people with ADHD don't have, because it's hard for them to consolidate some of their memories. But those are the people to ask. And there are screeners that, screeners are like paper questions, very often, not often, never. And then they score them and you can get a reasonable picture. I think my doctor knew I knew so much about it that I was pretty much diagnosing myself. But I have a problem with working memory.
Ask, like, what made you go to the doctor? Did you have an idea that maybe
it's genetic? It's a genetic disorder. So myself and my husband, both of us have it, and you can't have kids with it if you don't have it yourself.
Is that right?
It's secondary. It's secondary to your height. So it's pretty. It's secondary to your height.
What do you mean secondary? As far as
in hereditary, in terms of hereditary, So it's very easily, but not everybody's impairment is the same. Not everybody's symptoms look the same. And my functional impairments are not my husband's. He has a great memory. Me, forget it. It's terrible. It's horrible. And I can understand what my son goes through and trying to go through school. I went to online school. That was fun. Oh my gosh. I thought that would be easier for me. It took me an extra 8 weeks to finish one class. Yeah, but I had one of the things you really should do is you should disclose this before you sign up for classes or go to school or anything. You need to make sure that you have that extra time, because your processing speed is not the same. You get the answer, but you get the answer after the test. Right. Everything downloads a little bit slower, a little bit more different, because there's just not enough neurotransmitter action going on in the places that it has to go on. I'm amazed. My daughter is going through med school now. I am just like, now I understand why she got the grades she did when she was in school.
That's amazing. She was in med school.
Always consistently competent. That was one of the grades. The other one was satisfactory. The other one was needs improvement or not yet, something like that. So I'm in awe of her. She was the kid that didn't have ADHD, so she was kind of the kid that we thought maybe there was something wrong with her because everybody else was, we were like, one of these things is not like the other.
Let's
and
read a
she would
couple
sit
comments.
and play. Yeah, she didn't bother me. She stayed with me when we were in the store. She didn't put weird stuff in the refrigerator from the yard. She wasn't. She was making dinner at age 3, so I think she was hungry. And now she's doing some of her rotations here close to home, so she's living at home. And yeah, she's Katie in charge. She definitely gets everybody organized, which is great to have.
Good, Katie. Good for you. Let's read a couple comments here. We've got a little. We've got Jen Leos says, "Thank you, Eva." Kimberly Rose, my son always did better when he burned a lot of energy. He played football since middle school, had 2 gym or physical activity classes in high school, and a social worker to help with organization. It really helped, but he still struggled.
Yeah. There's actually a book about exercise and ADHD by John Rady. Rady and Ed Hallowell wrote the Driven to Distraction was one of the first ADHD books about ADHD with adults. And hold on a second, I gotta go.
Okay.
No, I got a cramp in my leg. I got a cramp in my leg. I had to stand up. I'm okay. Don't stretch your feet when you're sitting on a chair.
Hey, okay, I'm better. We do whatever. I'm proud of you for recognizing what you needed.
Yeah, I'm good. Shorten the muscle. So where was I? I took my Adderall late today, so I wouldn't have this problem.
No, trust me, you're talking to the queen of having this problem. So when we have this problem, we go to comments. Arlene says, fascinating.
Oh.
Seaton says, finally.
Hi, Seaton.
Heidi, do both parents need to have it or just one?
Just one, yeah. And my sister's name is Heidi, by the way. I think I told you that already, Heidi. I'm not sure, but we're 3 girls. And my older sister's name is Annie, A-N-N-Y. And then Heidi, and then me. So, all nice German names.
Yeah. And the 3 of you all have it?
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah. Yeah, my dad died at 30 from alcoholism. So ADHD, unfortunately, is not a good thing to have. In some cases, it can make you more likely to develop a substance use issue. More likely.
I mean, it's a form of pain in a way, right? Like, I'm a recovering alcoholic. For those of you that don't know, very proud to be in recovery. But I was dealing with it to mask, or I was drinking alcoholically to mask my pain, both physical, and then the alcohol was making the emotional pain way, way worse. It was like this vicious cycle. So I could totally see how that would be the case with ADHD as well.
Yeah.
Heidi's sister's son has it, and she suspects that she has it too.
Yeah.
The book info on the page, we will post that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The book,
the one on
book about the exercise.
Yeah, Heidi, let us know which one. We'll be happy to post. Let me write this down because I will forget. Okay.
That doesn't make sense.
And Arlene says, my husband has never been diagnosed, but I'm sure he has ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
it's
kind of what was making this all interesting. Or when we were talking to Eva at the Flush the Format, we weren't expecting the conversation we were having to go the direction it went, which is, it's fascinating. It's how, well, why don't you explain it? It was like, we're listening to her with her kids, and then her, and then some of the same, symptoms could possibly mean something else or in addition to. So maybe, I don't know where you want to start with that, but how would this affect those of us with chronic pain illness that don't have any kind of diagnosis?
Well, there seems to be a lot of overlap in the way this disorder presents itself, and it's a neurological issue. And most people agree that things like fibromyalgia are also neurological problems, not rheumatological. There's more evidence that they are somehow connected to our nervous system. And one thing I learned about in learning about ADHD is that ADHD has problems in the executive system. So regulating your emotions, your working memory, your ability to plan and problem solve, the ability to sequence things, mind mapping, they call this.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, and then the other one, your inhibition, obviously. And then your self-talk, that inner voice that you have is sometimes not as developed. And what typical people do is talk their way through things. And sometimes we have trouble connecting to that ability, or that ability isn't as good as it should be. And one of the things I learned about in ADHD was the emotional dysregulation. So this overexpression of emotion. People with bipolar disorder, they experience an overexpression of a mood state.
What about empaths?
Empaths?
Is there a correlation that you found between any of this stuff and being like
being empathetic?
Being an empathetic person.
I think it's a skill. Empathy is a skill, and there are a lot of people who they understand empathy. They have a hard time sometimes demonstrating it.
I'm asking because in my experience with our group for the past 5 years, everybody I've talked to, for the most part, is an empath in a big way. Like, we care so much about others. We're the caregivers. We give more care to everybody else than we do to ourselves. It's a very common thread in AOG. Yes,
I agree with that. I have to think about that. I'm sure something will pop up, but
no, that's okay. If there's no correlation, that's great. But
so fibro is what we call a dopaminergic dysfunction. So there's there's some sort of problem with your dopamine system. And when they started comparing the problems with ADHD and fibro in this one particular study they did in 2018 for they published it in the Pain Journal, Medicine Journal. So we could probably send you the link for that. So there's really evidence in both of these disorders of overexpression of something going on. In fibro, it's the overexpression of pain. In ADHD, it's the overexpression of your emotions. So this dysregulation can be that if you have ADHD, you are very much at risk for developing fibro. I'm not sure that fibro is a child onset disorder. I always had some sort of freaky thing going on in the summertime when I had, more sun. I would get stomach aches, and my grandmother would just dismiss it as the change of the seasons, but she was right in a way when she talked about that. But half of the people in this study said that their fibro started through a physical, and the other half said through an emotional insult of some sort.
So somebody requiring it to kind of come.
Yeah.
If you mean, okay. Interesting.
And if you've ever watched Hoarders, every single one of those poor people have ADHD. Every single one.
Yeah, they've got to. It makes me so sad.
And the thing that kind of pushes them over the edge was some sort of emotional trigger, an emotional event. Somebody died, or they lost something, and that started the whole cascade with the obsessional stuff. Yes, trauma, absolutely. And unfortunately, with ADHD, you're going to be more likely to experience trauma as a kid and as an adult. But that was really interesting. That it was equal.
Okay.
What's that?
You think because of your ADHD, or you mean that you've had that happen and then you get ADHD?
I think ADHD is a genetic disorder. Fibro, you could be more at risk for developing fibro or some type of disorder like fibro because of the ADHD. I think maybe that's kind of what this is doing. They're suggesting that people get tested if they're diagnosed with fibromyalgia or something like this, that they get tested for ADHD.
So how do they test for ADHD?
It's a screener, like a questionnaire. As an adult, you can just Google a adult ADHD screener. They have other tests for kids, and it's all pretty much what you were watching, subjective and objective. If your kids say that they really can't contribute too much when they're little, but as they get older, they don't want to talk about it. But and that's the hard part, because you always have to be that person to manage and direct them. That's the road on the relationship. Yeah, it's hard to be mommy and be about hugs and kisses and Milky Ways and tell them, for the 10th time to go brush their teeth.
I bet you must.
So just that's the hard part. Yeah,
I mentioned this book quite a bit. When the body says no, exploring the stress disease.
Oh, Gabor Matt, I know him.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then I recently got this one. The body keeps the score. Brain, mind, and body. The healing of trauma.
Yeah. So they are studying trauma now. They have been for the past 10 years with the ACEs program, the Adverse Childhood Experiences. I think it's trying to remember if it was done by the CDC or who it was being carried out by. But I think they've collected a lot of data about trauma and how easy it is for kids to change because of it. We right now we are seeing some of the effects of the way we've socialized our kids, because we're afraid somebody's going to take them. They don't run around the neighborhood anymore. They don't practice those social skills like we used to. And I think that is why we don't see kids moving out of their house at 18 anymore. We see them getting married at 30, and which is more appropriate, because the other way around is too risky.
Right.
But it's nice to have the influence of family until your brain is a little more hardwired. And I don't think kids should go to college right away either. I think
I was going to ask you about college.
At least 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, you think?
Of either a junior college or 2 years volunteering or a job, something planned. Though, if you're going to take a 2-year gap in your education, you really need to plan it. So it
and that's just for your brain to mature more. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Before you're going to plunk down $60,000 a year, and 60% of the kids in freshmen, they quit. 60%. So that's everybody's, come on, college, no. There's nobody in trades anymore. There's nobody being master carpenters and master plumbers. We need these people to keep up with the technology and to build everything and take care of it. They're going to be more valuable than the doctors and the nurses.
So you've got a question here from Pamela Creighton. Can a person have ADHD but not have high energy even while in childhood?
Yeah. Yes. My son was not hyperactive at all. My sister was. My sister was jumping off a fire escape with an umbrella, thinking she was Mary Poppins. Okay.
All right. I'm laughing. I know it's not funny, but it kind of is.
No, I know. She and I followed along with what she did, because she was kind of, who I hung out with more than I hung out with my older sister. She did the girly stuff with the older sister, and then the middle one got into trouble. But they just diagnosed my sister with hyperactivity. They didn't call it ADHD then. They called it minimal brain dysfunction.
Oh, wow.
It's accurate, but it sounds terrible. I mean, who wants to label their kid with that, right?
Yeah, right.
But it is. The brain has dysfunction. So
you don't have to have this high energy at all. No, okay.
This is caused, if you could see my headband here, in the brain, there's a strip of an area, it's called the motor strip. And actually, in kids with ADHD, this motor strip is overdeveloped. And this is why we see all this hyperactivity. And likely where the connection between ADHD and fibro are, because if that is overexpressed as well, we're having problems with our muscles right from the beginning. Do you see the connection?
And so you're saying that with the fibro, you're over feeling it. So you're over feeling. Okay.
There's something wrong with the motor neurons receiving information, that they constantly get this signal kind of like when you're smelling something, after a while you stop smelling it, but not with fibro. Your fibro, you continually feel it. Like you can push on one of your sensitive spots, right? And 10 minutes, you'll still feel it. Or somebody does it to you and you're like, okay, I still feel it.
You're talking about the pressure points with fibro have? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. And this is that overexpression of pain.
Interesting.
That signal that just keeps going and going and going in a loop. And I mean, my doctor was really nice about it. Actually, one of my doctors was my OBGYN. He cared about everything you were going on, what was going on with you. So if I had pain somewhere, he goes, would you like me to inject that? And I'm like, look at him and go, thank you. Somebody offered to help me with something other than below my waist. Yeah, thank you. So it was nice. He is one of my favorite doctors.
So Diana McGillivary Bruzo says, so sorry I fell asleep. Thank you for coming on. We'll watch replay. Thanks, Diana. Glad you're here.
No problem.
Says, my husband has just been diagnosed with fibro. So this is very interesting that he likely has ADHD. You're right, Arlene. I forgot you told me that.
So let's see some of the stuff I said.
I want to remind everybody again that we are neither one of us are doctor. Eva's an expert, and
my doctor calls me Dr. Eva. I guess that's not a nice
thing. But whatever, make sure you talk to your own doctors is what I'm trying to say. Eva is an expert, and it's fascinating because she's done all the research for us. And is picking
her brain. On the brain cause ADHD later in life. Not the ADHD we're talking about. It's a child onset. It's something that you have because you have it. It may cause very similar symptoms though, like not being able to pay attention to the same thing or to find things, uninteresting. Like ADHD has been called a disorder of interest too. So it's very hard for my son to latch on to something and go with it, fly with it. Then nothing interests and nothing gets that part of the brain to kind of to light up. There's also another. I wish I had sent this to you because it's so demonstrative of that part of the brain that helps us with motivation. There's
whatever you want to send along, I can just post.
Yeah. And maybe you can look for it. It's called an anterior cingulate. And I'll write it anterior cingulate, yeah. And they just look for it in the images.
Oh gosh, with my technology here. Let's see.
Yeah.
Anterior
cingulate, just the way it sounds. CINGULATE. And ADHD. Just do that and see if you get a side-by-side comparison of two brains, a typical and a control. I mean, a ADHD and a control.
My computer's running very slowly, I think, because we're streaming, so it's not responding. So I don't think I can.
That's how it's spelled. I have it probably in 15 places on my phone.
The second word again, one more time.
Anterior cingulate.
Cingulate.
GUL. Like
cortex.
Anterior cingulate cortex or anterior cingulate and ADHD. Just add the and ADHD. And
then look in images.
Yeah, it should be like a green bordered picture of two black and white brains, like the cross section of it.
Oops. Oh, I'm slowing down. Anyway, I may crash here. If I crash here, folks.
No worries. So anyway, this structure here behind your forehead, it helps you with three things. It helps you with reward and motivation, and it helps you with decision making, which you can understand those three things are very tightly connected. So when you or somebody who has, that's it, the green one, that's it. Right up there. One? That's one. Yeah. Open that one up. See how in the norm. Yeah, that's it. Perfect. And this is a great demonstration. I mean, I refer to this one so often because it really shows you the part of the brain that's supposed to be helping you with motivation, is not
letting me
helping you.
log in, so I'll have to look at small.
That's okay. It's fine. I mean, you can pretty much see that
Okay.
in the ADHD brain, that part of your brain, which is the green square, is not lighting up. It's just black and white in there. And then on the normal control, there's a little area there that's a little bright yellow spot. So with typical brain, you can see that when you have a thought about something you're proposing to do, it creates a motivational state. It creates an emotion. And because ADHD stops you from regulating your emotions carefully, and that's why it doesn't activate that part of your brain. There's where the neurotransmitters are not functioning, or there's not enough opportunity for those neurotransmitters to do what they're supposed to do. That's why we call it a dysfunction or underfunctioning. Underfunctioning is actually a better word. So what do people do when they have ADHD and they don't know it? They drink a lot of coffee. They sometimes have they have like risky jobs or jobs that keep them in a level of excitement. Maybe doctors or ER nurses, firemen, police. A lot of teachers have ADHD. And
Really?
the reason why teachers have a lot of ADHD is because of their career is more autonomous than anybody else's. Really, they're not kind of dictated to what they have to do precisely. During the day they do their lesson plans, and that's it. That's how they teach. But nobody's telling them exactly when to do that, how to do that.
Right.
Why do they
drink a lot of coffee?
A lot of coffee because of caffeine is a stimulant, and
so
it helps.
They're yearning for a stimulant.
Yeah. It seems to make them think clearer. People who argue a lot with one another is also a sign that there might be something going on, because arguing is something that will stimulate norepinephrine and adrenaline, and that unfortunately becomes a habit then, where you're yelling just to negotiate something with somebody else.
Right.
Those are like I said, those clandestine signs of adult ADHD. And it doesn't always have to be so impairing that you can't do your job or you can't get out of your house. People do develop compensatory skills because they have ADHD. And
what kind of skills?
Compensatory. So they're compensating for, like I said, with energy and, bringing it full energy all the time. That's their way of compensating. But eventually we're going to burn out. And if we develop fibro, we can't rely on energy anymore. Right. And it is very connected to, depression and anxiety. Those two are some of the most common coexisting stuff with ADHD.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Let's get a couple of questions.
Sure.
I told you this was going to be hot topic. We're at 1 hour, 15 minutes already.
Yeah.
And hours go fast. Kathy Otkath. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for being here. She says, fascinating. Arlene says, once my son was diagnosed and we found a medication for him, he went from having a teacher standing behind him and encouraging him to write whatever it was to, after he had medication, being able to write full sentences.
Yeah,
he had a hard time understanding personal space. I removed him from a school and teacher at one point because the teacher was always picking on him prior to his diagnosis. That's awful.
Yeah, I know. It is hard to watch that, where they don't understand that this is happening without that child's consent. This is happening without your consent. So one of the most common comorbidity or the co-occurring stuff with ADHD is anxiety. And having it can really worsen your situation.
I know it's very common for those of us with chronic illnesses, chronic conditions too, to have depression and anxiety.
Right.
I don't know if it's related or not. Maybe you can tell me, but I think a
It
lot of
is.
the things to do with and self-comforting and all the stuff that we have to deal with chronic pain and illness. I think it makes us very protective of our comfort. And so anything that's going to put that risk makes us anxious, which is understandable, right?
Right, definitely. Being perceived as, I think in my generation, we were terrified of becoming dependent on other people, and mooching off of, your family or stuff like that. That was sociologically one of the worst things that you could have done. So people in those age groups and those age categories, they burst through, they just kept up what they had to do. I think nowadays, I think we're letting ourselves have a little bit more leeway in self-care and understanding that, I know my father-in-law is a very anxious guy, and my son is a carbon copy of him. They have an anxiety that I don't think a lot of people know about. It's called RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria. And this is a type of co-occurring, not outside of the ADHD diagnosis world. ADHD kind of sets you up for it, where either real or perceived rejection is felt as pain, as physical pain.
Out of town.
So, yeah.
What is that called again? Rejection
sensitive dysphoria. And Dr. William Dobson has done a lot of research on it. Dobson. Dobson.
Yeah, I was writing down.
He's awesome. It's funny because I saw him when I was in one of the conferences, the chat conferences, and he came to register, and I was just hanging out back there being a pain in the ass. And
we don't have,
I kind of was looking for something, and I stood up and I saw his name tag, and I was like, oh, Dr. Yeah, I was like so excited and geeking out because I met him. Because this is exactly, I was reading, my son should have had the picture right there next to that description. And my father-in-law as well. So getting embarrassed can be painful, physically painful for people. And this is kind of where we see social anxiety and ADHD being comorbid and coexisting. And anxiety, the other side of that is depression. So anxiety turned inward, like most of us girls do. I'm sorry if there's guys on there. But most of those girls,
anger, right?
Anxiety when we turn our anxiety inward, we start to get depressed because we can't. So we don't get much out of doing it and telling everybody all the time. So you hold on to this silently, and I think AOG was the bottom line for a lot of us, where we felt like that. What else are we going to do? We can't do this. We can't help ourselves in those ways. It was magic, Lauren. It really was. I am grateful, and I thank for this group every single day, because how did I write it? I know I wrote myself a cheat sheet on this, or cheat note on it. And I said, so if fibromyalgia is one side of the coin, AOG is the other. In other words, it's the answer to that problem. Because you're really not going to figure it out anytime soon. There's not a lot of money going into research at this point. There's several different theories about how it, where is it coming from?
I think it's exclusively fibromyalgia.
My diagnosis?
No, I know yours, but I mean with ADHD and how it can cause fibromyalgia, do you find?
Well, they're thinking that it can be coexisting with ADHD. Yeah.
Right. What about other disorders, or is it exclusively fibromyalgia that they find to be coexisting, or possibly? Like
fibromyalgia and other things being co-occurring.
I'm just wondering, like you said people with ADHD, a lot of them have fibro. Just wondering if that. I think it makes sense the way you describe fibro with the nerves and all that. I was just wondering if there were other things also.
Also, I think people with autoimmune problems
Okay.
develop fibro. Yeah. And a lot of times they used to think it was a psychological issue because it responded to psychological medicine. It seemed to have been helped by taking antidepressants and so forth. And antidepressants cut back on neurological connections. That's how they work. So they cut out desire to a large degree, and that's what we want, especially if we have somebody we're treating that has major depression with ideation and so forth. But that one study that Dr. Frank Rice did, where he noticed that the 20 women that he got samples from their hands, they got palmar, they had a little biopsy taken out of their hands, and when they put this under a microscope, they saw that the tissue going into the blood vessels that opened like this shunt, it's called an AV shunt, the nerves going to this little open and close valve were excessive. So when you apply the theory of antidepressants cutting back on innervation, you will see that that's why it works. So sometimes we know the treatment before we know what is going on actually physiologically.
This is absolutely fascinating.
We do compare ADHD to a lot of different things, and even things like diabetes and metabolic problems, because that helps give us a window into where those connections can be and where those coexisting things can be.
I feel so privileged to know you. You're doing so many great things for people, you and your husband now. So your son, we thank him.
Her knit through lectures for better focus. Good idea. Pamela Crisco. Yeah. My oldest daughter, she crochets everything. she made these crocheted pieces to connect the ear straps for the mask. And there's like a little crochet piece with a button, and the button held on to the ear loop, so it wouldn't be hurting the back of their ears. She made like 50 of them.
Shark Tank or something.
We just kind of gave them out to the local pharmacies, to anybody that was a nurse that could use it, that kind of thing. So yeah, knitting, anything, any movement. ADHD is helped with movement, but in our case, we really can't do anything about increasing our movement except trying to get better in other things, right?
Exactly.
So you can you get ADHD later in life, or you are born with it? It is not adult onset. Very small amount of research has been done with adult onset ADHD. I think the earlier you see it, this is something they have researched. The earlier you see the symptoms of ADHD, the worse it's going to be. So when kids are diagnosed, the earlier you see the impairment, the worse the condition, the worse the level of impairment is going to be. So 3 and 4 year olds, they are going to be having a hard time in life.
What if you're like me and I've gone through my life. I made it through college and all that stuff. And, school was never my thing, but I made it through. And then, got sick, and most of us know my story. But anyway, so now I'm wondering, do I have ADHD? Because I'm having some light bulb moments here, or is it just brain fog due to my illness? Like, where do I go from here? What do I do?
Talk to your siblings, and know that it's really hard to diagnose girls. They do have better social skills than boys of the same age. They are a little bit more mature. So that helps them conceal it a little bit more. So they might not be helpful.
Socially,
I would try. Yeah, me too. I didn't always know everything that was going on. I kind of missed a little bit of things, like, social appropriateness. Sometimes it would just do before I thought, and that got me into a lot of trouble. I always talked my way out of it. Thankfully, I was able to not get the crap kicked out of me because of, but some people are not that lucky, and they'll fall in with the wrong people. They'll fall in with a group of kids that not going the same path, not going the right path either, because they are, flocking together. They don't know at the time why they are with one another, but they feel more at home with people who are also experiencing the same problems.
Yeah,
and I could show you a picture of me in high school that would just explain everything.
What do you think then? It's unlikely that I really have ADHD if I've gone through,
no,
if I've
no,
been okay socially and all that stuff, if I've had it all my life.
We have an adult that was diagnosed in his 70s that comes to our meetings. He's 80-something years old.
Like, why does it just seem like all these symptoms have started happening within the past 5 years?
Because you've probably been paying more attention to them. So our awareness of what ADHD looks like is getting better. And we're starting to see it as not a personality problem. It's not a moral failing. And, it's not a character flaw. It's a medical condition because medical approaches help it. It's neurogenic, so neurogenic medicines will take care of some of the symptoms.
It was actually Amy that was paying attention to me when she labeled me a hot mess.
Who's
I didn't know I was a hot mess.
Who said you were a hot mess?
Amy did.
Amy?
Oh. No, she means it in a loving, or she meant it in a loving. But she's absolutely right. I did not know I was a hot mess. I embrace hot mess. That's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It is.
About paying attention. I guess I wasn't paying attention because I am. I'm like a bull in a china shop. And I didn't know.
It's hard. It is really, really hard. After my medication stops working, I almost can't finish sentences. So I'm kind of lucky. I actually took my medicine late on purpose today, so I would be okay for this.
Pamela Creighton says, thank you. Really helps to know that fibro is present with me and have questioned ADHD.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted Eva to come on with us today, because that was the case for many of us that were in that Flush the Format where she spoke. Mm-hmm. And so we thought it would give some light bulb moments to many of you. I'm glad it is.
If you want to look at it a little bit more, check out topics of ADHD with regards to executive function. And also Dr. Russell Barkley is one of my absolute favorite researchers on ADHD. He's published about 250 times. And the last time I seen him, I got so proficient at talking, saying things the way he does. I went up to him and I said, I could finish all of your sentences because I've heard him a few times before, and he has like 50-word sentences. You're going to have to replay him a few times, slide that thing back just to get everything that he's saying, but he doesn't dumb it down. And I like that. I like that he uses the terminology that he does, because that's what's missing. That's why people don't understand this complex disorder that 17 million people have. And that's a conservative effort.
Yeah, is that right?
Estimate. Yeah. I mean, in Louisiana, it's 16% with children. 16% of the children in Louisiana have ADHD. 7% in New Jersey.
Or 1/6.
1/6, 16%, but that represents millions of kids.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. I know the CHAD leader down there. She was just our recent past president, Belinda Gaucher. Awesome woman, and helped so much with hearing her story. And I think that's what CHAD and AOG is all about. Is we're really not alone, because we know that everybody is going through something similar, and we don't have all in our head. It's an invisible illness,
Yeah, well, some of us are not invisible, but regardless, it's like pain is pain, and we don't need to know the specifics of each other's illnesses to know what it feels like to feel that emotional pain. We all know that, whether our pain's caused by stubbing our toe or from cancer, Right. And it's all on how we deal with it, right? Mm-hmm. And same with, I guess, fibros, kind of what you're saying. It's where your body's dealing with pain, which is interesting. Seaton here says, I believe that I have adult onset ADHD. Is that possible? If so, what can cause the onset? I think we touched on that already. So if she has it,
she doesn't look anywhere near menopause, but menopause is when it comes to having fibro, ADHD, and menopause. A lot of women have like approached. I remember Dr. Brown. He's also another researcher on ADHD from Yale, and he goes, all the menopausal women want to know if ADHD starts, in midlife or later in life, and the answer is no. But it's just making the symptoms overlap and get all worse at that point in time.
Oh,
so
menopause
young.
can make your symptoms worse.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So maybe that's why so many of us are feeling like this.
Like that, we started having these problems, after 40.
So we've just dealt with them all of our life and been able to make it through. But now we're turning into maniacs.
Right. But we also don't have the same kind of energy we did when we were younger. So when we hit our 40s and 50s and things start to slow down a little bit, we're starting to recognize, I'm having trouble with that. But that never used to be a problem. Maybe, something started.
And the hard thing is when we're aging like that, 40s, 50s and all that, we don't know what to attribute to aging. We don't know what to attribute to our own chronic condition. Or maybe ADHD, exactly. I tell people that I'm losing my memory in a very serious way. I'm losing my memory. And, people my age will be like, oh yeah, once I turn 50 and it's different. I know people do have, what do they call it? Menopause brain or whatever, but anyway, you just don't know what to.
It's a cognitive, what they call cognitive decline, because of your age and your hormone situation. It actually, it's kind of like when you're pregnant and any amount of dairy gives you really bad gas, because progesterone is slowing everything down to accept the pregnancy. So your menopausal hormones are readjusting now, and they can affect your neurotransmitter levels. Vitamin D is also something I recommend everybody get a level on. It was also a suggestion of my OBGYN, who I was very grateful for, because I had a level of 7 when it was first.
I feel like everybody I know, when they get blood work done these days, they all are low in vitamin D, including myself.
And we're an indoor society.
What was your recommendation? We don't give recommendations, but what was your recommendation from your doctor as far as how many international units of vitamin D to take? Do you remember?
I just got bumped up from, at first, I think I was taking 3,000, then I got bumped up to 5, now I got bumped up to 7.
Okay.
So I take 7,000 a day, but I also had been outside a lot more. And before I was doing that, I was having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning.
So check with your doctor. This was just her recommendation.
Definitely.
But you don't need to go to a doctor to get vitamin D, but that is interesting.
It's good if you don't just take it willy-nilly, because if you take too much, you can develop kidney stones, and that's one of those complications.
So would you recommend trying to get outside more too, to raise those levels of vitamin D?
You know what? It's going to hurt anyway. I would just go find a really nice spot in your community, or even if you have to maybe drive a little bit. We have a reservoir near us, and it is heavenly. It's just peaceful. It's a lot of trees hang over it, so you don't get as hot, but you have intermittent sun. And just like 10 minutes in the morning, my mother used to sit out in our backyard with her mouth open, and I couldn't understand what she was doing. Who does this? I'm like, what are you catching, flies? And then I realized your mucous membranes are a lot better at absorbing the sunlight.
Is that right?
Yeah. Her doctor must have told her to do that, but didn't explain to her why. As doctors in those days, they never explained anything. But contact with the mucous membranes was more in its immediate effect. But my mom was depressed for other reasons. She lost her husband at age 30 and had 3 little kids to raise. So, she had brutal, and she was in a train accident when she was 19.
Oh my God.
She never got any kind of help with the trauma from that. They just said she was never the same after that. And then my father died at 30. It was, And you say, well, I didn't do anything to, I was little. How do I get impacted by any of that? But you do, because you're impacted by how she raises you then after that. And, all that hypervigilance she had, with us was from that post-traumatic stress. Yeah.
Yeah, poor thing.
So I know.
Let's finish up with these comments. I just looked at the clock and I'm like, oh my God, we're at a record here. But it's good stuff that we all need to hear. So thank you. Pamela, Arlene, you can share the YouTube link with her. Am I right, Lauren? I'm not sure which YouTube link you are talking about, but
I guess this one to find it.
If you want to watch the show from the beginning, if that's what you're talking about, it'll be on the page as soon as we're done. If you need any other links or whatever, we can put on the thread after the show, because there's a lot of information coming here, and I want to make sure it all gets out. Eva does too.
Yeah.
Let's see. Linda Canalicchio. It's difficult to communicate with those with ADHD. They don't seem to be listening, and it's frustrating because I feel like I'm just wasting my breath and cannot have an intimate moment or dialogue. I'm not sure what that's supposed to. Dialogue. I bet that's dialogue.
Dialogue. Yeah. Yeah, it is hard. And they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how they're coming off to you.
Right.
Since my husband has it, and since I've been treated for it, I find us at different levels of awareness of what we look like to one another. And one doctor told me that he will see you as you see yourself. So I have a hard time not correcting him or pointing out to him all the times that, you see, you're not listening. I just told you, please get a hearing aid. Yeah. And that can really sabotage your relationship because, like I said earlier, this happens to them without their consent, and they don't have that, what we call metacognition. So that ability to see that part of it and how it comes together, that ability to know yourself. I know there's another word for it. Well, that's it.
Self-awareness.
I'm all done.
Deborah Emmer Scott says, thank you so much for sharing your time. Fascinating topic. When you get vitamin D from the sun, don't wear sunscreen or sunglasses for 15 minutes.
Yeah, true. It gets into your eyeballs too. Any mucous membrane is a fast way in for vitamin D. And I feel so much better after being outside, even though even with like 100 sunscreen, I don't want no wrinkles, man. I'm trying to protect this skin I've got. But it is okay to do it, for 10 minutes and then go put some sunscreen on if you're going to be out there longer because you don't want the cancer.
Right. And people with lupus need to be careful with the sun too, I know. So.
I was I don't know if you know this, but I was diagnosed with lupus.
No, I didn't know.
When I was first diagnosed with the fibro, when I first had the first insult, I got my fibro from taking antibiotics. And I took it twice. Yeah, I was hospitalized twice for Bactrim, for serum sickness. So kind of like the antibodies and the Bactrim molecules, or the sulfa molecules, were clumping together in my bloodstream. Pain was off the hook. It was just crazy. And that was the insult that started mine.
Oh my God. I'm like fascinated here because 5 years ago, I had to take Cipro for something, and I never had I already had the lupus. I never had neurological issues until I took that Cipro. Are they related? I have no idea. But it seems
Cipro, I think is a broad spectrum antibiotic. I don't think it contains any sulfa, but I have a true sulfa allergy, which I never knew before because my sister has like crazy interstitial cystitis. She always has yeast infections and bladder infections. And she takes Bactrim like it's candy. And so, why did I think I was going to have a problem with it? Well, I couldn't walk. I was like in the emergency room shaking, and you know what they thought I was there for, right? So they all ignored me for about 9 hours, thinking I'd leave, but I couldn't.
Drug, alcohol, withdrawal. Yeah.
So for the 3 years after that, my ANAs were testing positive, and I was on Plaquenil. And
interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't true lupus.
Right.
That's
right. I forgot drug-induced lupus. Yeah, I forgot about that. Arlene says, I want to share this conversation with my daughter-in-law. We have had many conversations about our son, her husband. Yeah. And you can share the link as soon as we're done here. Margaret says our bodies can stop making vitamin D from the sun. Mine has. My
Interesting.
maintenance dose is 2,000. Yeah, thanks, Margaret.
Oh,
That is
wow.
interesting.
I didn't know that.
Gosh, I really hate to end the conversation, but I think we have to, for the sole purpose of, if we don't, and we want people to watch this later, if they start seeing like already an hour 40 minutes, they're going to be like, "Rah." I want as many people to see this as possible. But all of the links and stuff that you've talked about, yes, I would love for you to come back. And I think we've got a lot of people that are, they've got this in their heads now. They may have more questions for you. Thank you to everybody who's hung in. It's a big one. Yeah. Quite a few people have hung in the entire time, and that's a big deal for us with chronic illnesses. So thank you. Eva, thank you for being here.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Fantastic information. I know this is a very different topic than what we normally do, but I thought it was
important. Do pursue a diagnosis. So if you think that this is matching you, just think back, and I will give you a screener that was developed by a psychologist here in New Jersey, and the narrative is very different from what you see with the other screeners. So it talks about more of the functional impairment that comes from having ADHD. So like I said, sometimes those hidden things that we'll never attribute to a disorder like this, because our impairment may have been very mild all of our life. And don't forget, when we were growing up, there wasn't 25 different choices to make for corn on the, in the supermarket aisle.
Yeah.
Our choices and our things that we have are making it so that we catch it very quickly. We get overwhelmed pretty quickly. Or we just think, if you're my age, we just think you're not trying hard enough. So don't put that on yourself. There's very, very little that is coming from your wanting to do things. So one of the doctors I really love, his name is Dr. Green, and everybody should take a look at his website. It's called Lives in the Balance, and it's for parents mostly, but I think it's great if people learn how to do this. They actually teach it to the delegates at the UN. It's called Collaborative and Proactive Solutions, and it is a way to have better relationship with your kids and your family and just about everybody. But his quote is, "Children do well if they can, not if they want to." So and you know what? Adults are the same way. Everybody wants to do well. I don't think anybody truly, truly wants to do bad in their life. So it's a matter of your ability, is whether you can, not if you want to.
Right.
So give yourself that area of discretion, that it's not really you just not wanting to. It's whether you can or not.
Seaton says you ladies rock.
Yeah.
Arlene says
thank you so much for hanging
Pamela,
in there.
We've got two more here all of a sudden. So fascinating, educational, relatable, and helpful. Thank you so very much, Eva. Thank you, Lauren, for the wise decision to have Eva here. Thank you.
Those are great. Thank you.
And it says Life's in the Balance.
In the Balance website. Yeah, it's livesinthebalance.org, and it'll change your life if you have problems with. See, at this point, if it's diagnosed or not diagnosed, you will definitely get some help from that website, because you'll have a better relationship, and that's really all that matters, right?
That's absolutely right. Thank you. Thanks all of you for
everybody.
Hanging out with us. Eva, thank you again so much.
You're very welcome.
Peace and love, gang. I'll see you next week. Bye.